see my screen. And also, as you may have heard, we are going to be recording today. So quick reminder there as well, you will get a recording or an email with the recording automatically. So just look out for that. It's usually pretty immediate right after the webinar today. So thank you all for being here. I'm Hallie Crawford. I'm a certified career coach, speaker, and author. And I have been coaching and training since 2002 for a really long time. And I'm looking forward to talking with you today for the next 25 minutes, give or take or so, about how to cope with and even better, learn from career regret. And how do we turn that into making better professional decisions, whether it's with your career direction, whether it's getting a new a promotion, a new job elsewhere, whatever it is. Career regret happens to everybody. So please know, number one, you are not alone. So I've been coaching and training since 2002. Our company is based in Atlanta, Georgia. We have coaches in different areas of the country. I have an undergraduate degree from Vanderbilt University and a master's degree from the University of Illinois. And I'm thrilled to be here with you all today because this is a really common problem, not just for the people and clients that come to us, but for so many professionals. I've experienced career regret personally multiple times in my career path. So here's our agenda and what we're going to be talking about today. And just as a quick reminder, like we said, you'll receive a copy of the recording. And as we go through our items and action steps and suggestions, I would suggest that you write down one or two things that you want to take on first that make the most sense for you based on your situation and needs, because we're going to give you a lot of information today. And so that you don't get overwhelmed, pick a couple of things, and then you can always listen to the recording later on. So what we're going to talk about for about 25 minutes or so is these three items: how to align your professional goals next time with what is most fulfilling for you and why we think that is so important as a first step. We're going to talk about expanding your thinking, how to think bigger with your professional goals, and balance feeling good about or passionate about or enjoying your work and your professional life, but balancing that with the practical considerations that we all have. We've got to pay our bills, what's going to be realistic for us to obtain based on our past experience, et cetera, versus what is a little bit more of a stretch for us. And then finally, taking risk, because part of reaching any goal or achieving any goal, there's going to be some kind of risk involved, and how to kind of mitigate that, manage it, work around it a little bit, and take the right risks, if you will. So let's take a look at our first slide here. The first thing that we would recommend that people do is think about and write down and maybe even journal about what your regrets are professionally. Do you have to go all the way back like 10 years or something? Not necessarily. I would be focused on the regrets that you've experienced maybe in the past several years, okay? And you can write it out for yourself so that you're really clear about what you're coping with, what you're dealing with, so we know what we need to target and what we need to address. People will tell us all different types of things, like, I wish I hadn't taken the job just for the money. I wish I had tried to find something that I enjoy more and be more fulfilled with. I wish I had quit my job sooner. Some people will say that. We even had one client say to us once, I got laid off last week and it was the best thing that ever happened to me. Now, not everybody is going to say that, I realize, because we need to pay our bills. But sometimes getting pushed into that next step is just what we need. And then finally, some people will tell us, I wish I had taken more risk. So it's a really good idea to write down what your regrets are so that you're identifying and understanding very clearly what they are, so you know what to do differently next time. And also to process any emotions that may be coming along with it. So what we find too, if you look at this next slide, is that understandably, there's a lot of emotions that can come with different professional decisions. Even though we may try to separate our work and our personal life, we all know they bleed into each other. We're human. It's normal for that to happen. So if you are still experiencing from your regrets of any type, any frustration anger, grief, fear, or, anxiety related to these things, please know, number one, you are not alone. And one of the things that you need to be working on, in addition to thinking about, okay, how can I make better professional decisions the next time around? But how do we need to process these emotions? Journaling can help with this, taking a walk in nature, which is why we've got this guy hiking, talking to supportive family and friends, a coach like us. This can help you get out of your head a little bit more, work through whatever emotions may be going on for you so that you can get to the other side. And the bottom line is you can't skip over them. You have to work through them. So that's why the idea is that you need to process those emotions, work through it so that you can get to the other side. And the other way that you can think about what's going on for you now is instead say to yourself, okay, what's the opportunity here? How can I take better control of my career path, my decision making professionally, and the direction that my career is headed? And we use this career model with all of our clients. It's got these blocks here. They're falling into place because it's almost like a puzzle with the pieces falling into place. We always have clients start with fulfillment first at the bottom to think about, okay, related to my career goals, how can I work towards something that will be more fulfilling and rewarding to me? Nothing's going to be perfect. And I get that we also have to be practical. But if you try to work towards fulfillment first, you're going to take greater risks in a good way, try harder for something that you would really enjoy, come up with more career ideas than you would otherwise because you're focusing on that. And then you can always adjust those ideas and thoughts based on practical considerations like, what do I need to get paid? What's realistic based on my strengths and experience? You can do that later on, but then you've got a lot more ideas and you've thought outside the box more. So we recommend with all of your career goals, you are taking into consideration all of the pieces or components of this model, everything from fulfillment to your personality type and what are the types of roles that are going to be best for you, whether you're introverted or extroverted, for example, to what's the right work environment for you and how can you shape that for yourself in the long run. Okay. So try to think more positively about this as much as you can. Again, this isn't perfection here, but see this as, okay, this is an opportunity for me to take charge. So number one, we've kind of talked about this already, but we really want you to align your professional goals going forward with that fulfillment component of the model, but also all of those other pieces. You can use the model to actually help you define and develop your goals to make sure that you are on track. Now, when we think about fulfillment specifically, there are kind of two components to fulfillment, if you will. There's the heart piece and the head piece. And the way that we can define this or start to think about it is on the right-hand side. The heart piece of it is, I really enjoy my job. I feel like this is what I'm meant to do, or I'm passionate about it. Or it may for you be more so, I have a sense of accomplishment every day. It's however you define it. Okay. And the way that you think about this is to identify what your career values are. What's going to be most rewarding and important to you in your career. And we have people write a list or create a list of, these are my must-haves in my job, and make sure that as much as possible, their decisions going forward align with those must-haves. And we also have clients think about and kind of analyze a peak experience for them in their life, a time or a moment when they were lit up, felt great, whether it's graduating from graduate school or whatever. It doesn't matter what the experience is. And to think about what was meaningful and rewarding to you about that. And can you incorporate some of those values into your work life in some way, shape, or form, even if it's within the work environment versus the tasks that you're performing? The head piece of fulfillment is where you need to clarify and understand what your practical priorities are in your life as well. And we like to use this life balance wheel. If you look at the slide here, there's an example so that you can start to also think about, okay, what are my career goals and are they aligned with not just my values, but also how do I want to balance the rest of my life around the other elements, those other elements of the life balance wheel, if you will, and how do you want them to interact? So we would suggest that Step number one here with the fulfillment piece of the model is to begin with your values first and identify around 5 values that are career values for you. Step two is to then complete the balance wheel to identify your life priorities and how can your career support what those are and or vice versa. So for example, if you feel like you want to have personal growth honored within your professional life as well as in your personal life, then you need to think about that. Like, I would like to have a job where I'm continuously learning or, getting the chance to tackle new challenges versus some other people might say, nope, that can just stay in my personal life. And then step three is with all of these is to develop and or over time revise your career goals based on your values. Always come back to your values and this balance wheel to help you identify and clarify your goals. Okay. So with this fulfillment piece, if you look at the left-hand side of this slide, like we just said, before that next decision, get clear about your values and ask yourself, okay, is this decision aligned with these values or not? And align it with your life balance wheel too. Again, we're not saying that your life balance wheel is going to be perfect at a 5 or a 10 all the time, and that you have to say, well, my work life has to support all of these other things. It's making you think about where your priorities are at the end of the day. So quick example, we worked with a client. She was here in Atlanta. She was a corporate in-house lawyer, not very fulfilled. And when we worked on her career goals and aligned them more so with her values, she ended up deciding, you know what, I don't want to get rid of, like, there's a reason why I went to law school. I don't want to give that up, the money I spent, the experience, et cetera, et cetera. But for her, still being a lawyer, but at a smaller firm with different values and a different culture, serving different types of clients, matched both her values and her priorities. So if you look at the slide, value of working with a smaller firm to see a greater impact, different culture, but it also aligned with the head piece of, I want to make a certain income. This is what I've been used to, and leveraging her education as well. Now, I know sometimes this can feel a little bit complicated. So if you have not worked with us before through coaching, we always do a free consult to talk with you a little bit more about our services so that you can ask any questions, find out what might be the right best fit for you. And you can email us at admin@createyourcareerpath to do that, or just go to our website and sign up for a free call. It's at the top right and in multiple places on our site. Let's talk about number two, and this is expanding your thinking a little bit more. So as we've said so far already, we really do need to balance the practical with the passion. I was on a webinar yesterday, and someone said very validly, well, it sounds nice to be able to go get something that I really enjoy, but is that realistic? Sometimes I feel like I need to just take the job for the money, or I'm lucky to have someone offer me a position. And I totally understand that. This is not about everything being perfect all the time. That's unrealistic. Here's what I tell our clients is that what you're going for in terms of your professional life, as much as possible, it may ebb and flow a little bit, but that the good parts about it so far outweigh the bad things, the things you don't like as much, that you barely notice those things. So the key here is to be able to, and okay with compromising, but being at choice with where you're compromising versus feeling like, well, I just got sucked into this and now I don't know and I don't like it. If you sit there and choose, for example, this is, I'm okay with these things over here because I get this other good stuff over here, then that's a good decision. And that's how you can kind of make a more practical, but also fulfilling decision too. So when we're balancing these two things, number one, on the left-hand side, like we've said earlier, we want you with your career goals, whatever they are, whether it's career transition or not, we want you to think as big as possible, like go big or go home, right? That old, saying that everybody says. So think really big, because what we find is that it's easier to pare things down and tone it down a little bit versus build it up more and make it bigger. And what happens to people too often is that they don't go big enough and then they end up stuck, or it's, they didn't get as close to what they really wanted. Dream first and dream big. be realistic about things and realize this may take a little bit of time. I might have to have a bridge job in between where I really want to be and where I am now. But what I'll tell you from my personal experience myself is that even if it takes you a little bit of time to go through a career transition, it is worth it. On the other side, having a job that is great or a great fit for you for the rest of your life is fantastic. My transition was 2 years because I was growing a business and I did not want to quit the job that I had, my day job at the time, until I was making the same amount that I was working there. So I got a job that I was working part-time in that. I was working Monday through Thursday. So I was still paying my bills. It wasn't truly part-time. And then I was able to grow my coaching practice on the side. But the practical side of me was like, okay, I'm not leaving until these numbers match. And it was tiring sometimes as my business got busier. It was a lot because I was starting to work 2 jobs. But when I look back at that, even if it took twice as long to have a job that's really a good fit for you, it is so worth it. Okay. So this is part of why we say for step number 2 is really define fulfillment first, because you'll think outside the box more, and then you can bring in the practical step number 3 on the right-hand side. Some of your ideas may not pay you enough, so you take them off the list. Are the goals that you have on there realistic, based on your talent, skills, etc.? Adjust them if needed. Using another example of a client, she had a desire to work within health and wellness in some way, shape, or form, because that was one of her values. Well, she worked at the time in sales at a furniture organization. It was a family-owned business. The point is, though, she was used to a certain salary there. And so one of her ideas on her list was dietitian at the time. When she dug into that more and did her research, she realized, ooh, I'd have to go back to school. That was not something she wanted to do. Number 2, it didn't pay as well as she was used to, which she wasn't really thrilled with. And number 3, at the end of the day, honestly, she was like, I'm not really sure I want to work one-on-one with people. For her, she wanted to have like a larger impact within health and wellness. So what she ended up doing is getting into sales for a consulting firm that sold programs or provided programming and resources to companies to help their employees become healthier and therefore save on insurance costs. So it was still health and wellness, but in a way that would work for her. Okay. So as we said earlier, you can balance the practical and the passion, come up with a lot of ideas and narrow them down and keep looking, because it is a little bit like a breadcrumb trail where you need to keep looking and searching for, oh, this is related to this, etc. We talked about this earlier. What we would suggest, though, too, just to reiterate and expand for a moment, is that it's a good idea when you're creating a strategic career plan for yourself or a professional plan, even if it's a professional development plan, whatever you call it, we would recommend that you have each of these components in it and identify and track your goals in each of these areas. Don't just have a goal for this is how much money I want to make and this is the job title I want to have in 5 years. Think about what's the ideal work environment and how can I try to work towards that or help create it for myself. So have a career goal for each of your areas. And sorry, my dog's barking in the background, of course. All right. As part of balancing the practical with the passion, we already talked about the health and wellness example just a second ago. So here are some ideas that can be helpful for you to help you brainstorm ideas, though, and kind of strike this balance between 2 things. Number 1, brainstorm career goals with a friend or a family member or a coach. That's why we do what we do, to help figure out, okay, what's the best way to achieve this goal? And are these the right goals for myself? Identify practical ways to implement them. Conduct informational interviews with people who are in the career path or have achieved some of the things that you would like to achieve and ask them how they got there. What do they think of things now? We always say alumni on here as well, because your alumni network is always or could be a good resource for you because those are warmer leads. And then obviously that's what we do, talking about working with a career coach. So the bottom line here with this one is it really helps to brainstorm and talk with other people to get their feedback and input, just to make sure that not only are you on the right track, but are you being realistic enough, or do you need to adjust something? Or are you not thinking big enough and you need to push yourself a little bit more? Let's talk about step number 3, and this is the inevitable, taking some kind of risk. Now, here's the deal. What is it? They say that without risk, there's no reward, and this goes for life and our professional lives too. Okay. And so you need to incorporate as part of your career plan and your action steps. Okay, what are the risks that I'm willing to take in order to make this happen? And what are the ones that I'm not willing to take? So it may be like for me, for example, I did not want to take a financial risk when I was starting my business, even though at that time I was a lot younger. I was in my 20s. I didn't have kids, but I was very conservative about it. Now, someone else, and I've heard about people like this, right, may say, I'm quitting because I'll be able to grow my business faster. And I've got this amount of savings, or, whatever it is. So identify what level of risk you're okay with and comfortable with, but know that, as we've said earlier, any change or working towards achieving a goal requires some amount of risk. The key is here to prepare for it. So you want to ask yourself with your action steps and evaluating the goals and action steps that you're considering, will these move me towards my goals? Not just are they the right goals, but will they move me forward? What kind of risks do I need to take, and how can I minimize that risk? So for example, with me, I could have saved some money, let's say, and not stayed at the job that I was at and, made some adjustments there, been able to start sooner. But the idea is to take these risks, like prepare for them in advance, think about the right ones to take, figure out what you can kind of reasonably digest, but you're still pushing yourself enough, and implement them over time while you're getting support on, am I making the right choice? So here's our quick, green flag quiz, if you will. It's the opposite of our red flag quiz, that you are making the right career decisions. And I would suggest holding on to this so that you can understand, not just with our career model, am I on track? And what do I need to make sure that I'm doing to cover my bases? But how do I know if I'm making the right career or professional decisions? Number 1 is, if you're excited to go to work most mornings, doesn't have to be all the time. And you know what? You may go through a period of several months where you're not into it because maybe you don't feel challenged. Maybe you're working on a project you don't like as much. Again, this is not perfection, but you can be excited to go to work or enthusiastic about it the majority of the time. And that's what we want for people. If your work relationships and your performance is thriving, that's a huge thumbs up. If you gain a sense of either joy or satisfaction or sense of accomplishment or meaning from your work, sometimes people will ask us, Hallie, do I really have to feel passionate about my job? I don't really feel passionately about anything. And that's totally okay. It's all about what makes sense for you and how you want your work to be incorporated in your life. If you feel motivated and challenged, for the most part, that means you are making the right decisions too. If you feel like you can be yourself at work, that is really important. Now, this authenticity thing is something we talk with our clients about. And we're not saying here, we all have a professional persona. We're not saying let it all hang out and, share everything personally with people, because professionally, that's not appropriate, right? But if you feel like you can be yourself, true to yourself at your job, it's a good thing. It's problematic if you feel like you have to turn into someone else or, twist yourself into a pretzel in order to fit in at work. That's not a good thing. Number 6, if your job makes regular use of your talents and strengths, the majority of the time, the ones you want to be using, if you don't complain about your job that often, and if you envision yourself in your industry or path long-term, that is a really good sign as well. Now, I'll say something about this one, and then we'll start to move to our closing slides. You may be in the current career that you're in or job for a reason, because it's going to move you to something else. So that would be the only kind of disclaimer or difference here with number 8. If you don't envision yourself where you are long term, but you're staying there for a specific reason, like I did, where I was growing my coaching practice, that's okay. As long as it has some piece to the puzzle for your long-term goal, that's what matters, or it supports it, if you will. All right. And finally, with risk, and this is our second to last slide here, we're going to ask you to start writing down one action step that you will take in the next week. I know we have a holiday weekend coming up, so we may need to push it out a little bit. But in terms of your implementation, whether it's risk or anything else we've talked about today, it's a really good idea after you've identified these clear goals. Okay, obviously, what are the action steps I need to take in order to achieve each one? And with this risk component, put a star by the ones that require the most risk and consider and think about, okay, is this the best idea, or is there another way to work around this? Or do I want to take this risk, but I'm going to do so over time? And under each action step too, also evaluate the worthiness of that risk. This is how you can work on mitigating it and making sure it's going to push you in the right direction, if you will. All right. So go ahead, and we would love it if you would write down one action step that you will take in the next week. Feel free to even email it to me and share it with me. I'd love to see it. We've got some suggestions here. Review the life balance wheel, review our ideal career model. It could be that you're already at the point where, okay, I'm in risk mode and I need to do some evaluation about what's the right thing there. So regardless of what it is, based on your situation, write down one thing you will do in the next week. We hope that you have a great holiday weekend. I truly hope this was helpful for you as a starting point. And please feel free to reach out to us anytime if you'd like to learn more about our coaching services. Have a great day.